So let's talk about this new album. It's called Forever Burning, and it was released on June 17th through Agonia Records. You mentioned the COVID period and the difficulty in coming up with new material. Did you start writing this during the lockdowns?
There were ideas that made the album that were written pretty soon after Black Sun Unbound. So we're probably talking 2017 or so. But we did predominantly record the album during the lockdown COVID period. We'd sort of planned to do an album around 2020. And then it just kept getting, I guess, harder to get it actually done because of everything that was happening down here. So it wasn't really written during that period. A lot of the ideas had been around for some time before that, but I guess it came to fruition during that period.
So you mentioned that this has been the most collaborative album so far. Did you go into this wanting to do anything different musically?
I think we always do have the mindset that we don't want to create the same record twice. I really like when you look at even classic bands where each album has its own feel, its own sound. You hear the way that a band develops and grows. You look at classic, the first three Metallica records is an obvious one. Bands like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, they've got periods of their discography where they pursue a certain sound, and you hear how some albums are sort of linked and off the back of each other, but they have periods where you can hear that they've tried to do something new, and I really like that approach. I don't really see the point to sit and write the same type of album again. So we went into this one with more of a stripped back approach in terms of what we wanted to do. I thought on the last record that it was about 50 minutes, and it started to get a little bit long for my liking, and a lot of the songs were sort of 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes. So I wanted to do something that was a little more direct and in your face, and the end result then was trimming back a lot of the ideas, and it sort of moved things across to more traditional song structures with verses and choruses, and I think that made the music really catchy and memorable. But as a result as well, meant that a lot of the songs were 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes, not 6 minutes. So it's a shorter album. I think it's very direct, and it sort of gets to the point, which is what we I wouldn't say we had a plan just to do that from the start, but that's the idea and concept that grew as we worked on it, and the way we decided to go compared to the last album.
Yeah, I mean, even besides the shorter songs, this album does have like more of a classic feeling. I was thinking of like a lot of like classic Priest or maybe even early Bathory, that kind of feeling to some of the songs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's just straight up real, I guess you could say headbangers, they're traditional structures. We sort of steered clear of playing at tempos that were too quick. I like blast beats, and I think they have their place, but on this record, a lot of the tempos we went for were a lot slower. So even when it's blasting, it's not, it's not hyper or anything. It's more at a tempo that you could bang your head to. So that became a conscious thing as well. I think it's just a lot more old school and traditional in that sense.
Yeah, it does feel like a very like headbangable album, or like almost like a festival album. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you ended up recording this album?
In terms of like the recording process?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So we took a different approach to how we've done all of the other albums. Previously, we would go into the studio and do it all in one location. So we would start with drums, we'd lay those down, then we'd lay down guitars, bass, vocals, and then mix it in the studio there. And we've recorded previously with Jerome from Nocturnal Graves. He's got his own studio. So the last couple of records were done following that process, but this time we recorded or tracked across 3 different locations. So we recorded the drums in one studio. I managed to record guitars and vocals in my own home studio, and then we mixed it with Jerome in his studio. So it was somewhat of a learning experience to do it that way. We had the benefit of, for example, recording the vocals in my own studio, which meant I could really set the atmosphere the way I wanted it. And, it wasn't rushed to, like when you're paying for a studio and you go in and you've got a couple of days to record vocals and you have to get it done then and there. I was able to do it at a pace where I could get the most out of it in terms of the performance and feeling really relaxed and focused and just really good energy during those sessions, which you can't always replicate on the spot if you're in a studio somewhere else. So I think we sort of learned a lot from that process. It was difficult because we were in lockdown for some of that time. I'm not sure how much you know about Melbourne in particular in Australia, but we had some of the harshest lockdown laws in the world at that period. So, for example, when we wanted to mix the album, the studio where we were mixing is a couple of hours drive away from where we live, and we were supposed to not leave the house or even see each other at that time. We were pretty much locked in our homes. So we had to break the rules a bit to get it done, which I think that attitude was reflected in some of the playing on the album, because it was a time when we were certainly pissed off a lot because of the way we were living at that time.
So to clarify, when you guys were recording in different locations, was that a result of the social distancing requirements, or was it something that you guys had planned on doing prior to that?
It was something we'd planned to do with this album. I guess I wanted the luxury of being able to track vocals and guitars in my own studio, where I was not bound by time restraints in particular. And the studio where we recorded the drums was mainly chosen because of the location. It was in Melbourne, and we were able to book in the time that we wanted to get it done. So that was something we'd planned. I guess the lockdown pressures were just added on top of that and made the whole thing a lot more challenging.